where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe. You are listening to Talk of the Night. And now, your host, Paranormal Phil. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the world, around the globe, or even in your own backyard. I am Paranormal Phil. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving with your friends and family, or hopefully you spend it with somebody. But I enjoyed my Thanksgiving with a few friends since I don't have really much family in the area anymore, and I can't travel. So, because I don't have the money. But tonight's show is pre-recorded, so there will be no call-ins, there will be no chat to worry about or anything like that. But since it is the Thanksgiving weekend, I decided to do a show, pre-recorded show, on the history of Thanksgiving. So let's open up that window, and this comes from history.com about the history of Thanksgiving, even though it says Thanksgiving 2020. But, and yes, this is a lot different than normal Thanksgivings. But here's what it says. Thanksgiving Day is a national holiday in the United States, and a few other places celebrate Thanksgiving. But it's a national holiday here in the United States. And Thanksgiving 2020 occurs on a Thursday, which it does every year, but it occurs on Thursday, November 26th. In 1621, the Plymouth colonists and Wampanoag Native Americans, now I know I probably messed that word up. Native Americans shared an autumn harvest feast that is acknowledged today as one of the first Thanksgiving celebrations in the colonies. For more than 2 centuries, days of Thanksgiving were celebrated by individual colonies and states. It wasn't until 1863, in the midst of the Civil War, that President Abraham Lincoln proclaimed a national Thanksgiving Day to be held each November. Now, Thanksgiving at Plymouth. In September 1620, a small ship called the Mayflower left Plymouth, England, carrying 102 passengers and an assortment of religious separatists seeking a new home where they could freely practice their faith, and other individuals lured by the promise of prosperity and land ownership in the New World. Of course, they took that land from Native Americans, but it is what it is now. After a treacherous and uncomfortable crossing that lasted 66 days, they dropped anchor near the tip of Cape Cod, far north of their intended destination at the mouth of the Hudson River. 1 month later, the Mayflower crossed Massachusetts Bay, where the Pilgrims, as they are now commonly known, begin the work of establishing a village at Plymouth. And of course, named after the place that they came from, Plymouth, England. Throughout the first brutal winter, most of the colonists remained on board the ship, where they suffered from exposure, scurvy, and outbreaks of contagious diseases. Only half of the Mayflower's original passengers and crew lived to see their first New England spring. In March, the remaining settlers moved ashore, where they received an astonishing visit from an Abniki, and again, I apologize if I mispronounce it, but that word right there, Native Americans who greeted them in English. So Was it that they knew English from the people that came ashore first? Or did they know it beforehand? That's the question. Several days later, he returned with another Native American, Squanto, a member of the Pawtucket tribe, who had been kidnapped by an English sea captain and sold into slavery before escaping to London and returning to his homeland on an exploratory expedition. Squanto taught the pilgrims, uh, weakened by malnutrition and illness, how to cultivate corn, extract sap from maple trees, catch fish in the river, and avoid poisonous plants. He also helped the settlers forge an alliance with the Wampanoag, a local tribe which would endure for more than 50 years and tragically remain one of the sole examples of harmony between European colonists and Native Americans. Now, of course, there are different stories to this. In November 1621, after the Pilgrims' first corn harvest proved successful, Governor William Bradford organized a celebratory feast and invited a group of the fledgling colony's Native American allies, including the Wampanoag chief Massasoit. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce any words. Trying to sound them out the best that I can. Now, remember, as Americans' first Thanksgiving, although the Pilgrims themselves may not have used the term at the time, the festival lasted for 3 days. While no record exists of the first Thanksgiving exact menu, much of what we know about what happened at the first Thanksgiving comes from Pilgrim chronicler Edward Winslow, who wrote, Our harvest being gotten in, our governor sent 4 men on fowling, that so we might after a special manner rejoice together. After we had gathered the fruits of our labor, they 4 in one day killed as much fowl as with a little help besides served the company almost a week, at which time, amongst other recreations, we exercised our arms, many of the Indians coming among us, and amongst the rest of their great king Massasoit, with some 90 men whom for 3 days were entertained and feast, and they went out and killed 5 deer, which they brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor and upon the captain and others. And although it be not always so plentiful as it was in this time with us, yet by the goodness of God, we are far from want, that we often wish you partakers of our plenty. The wording in those days was a little weird to people this age. Nobody talks like that anymore. Now, historians have suggested that many of the dishes were likely prepared using traditional Native American spices and cooking methods, because the Pilgrims had no ovens and the Mayflower's sugar supply had dwindled by the fall of 1621. The meal did not feature pies, cakes, or other desserts which had become a hallmark of contemporary celebrations. And let me know what your favorite uh, dessert is for Thanksgiving. Mine is pumpkin pie, of course. During Christmas, during Thanksgiving, both. I love pumpkin pie. But let me know what you think in the description or in the comments. Pilgrims held their second Thanksgiving celebration in 1623 to mark the end of a long drought that had threatened the year's harvest and prompted Governor Bradford to call for a religious fast. Days of fasting and Thanksgiving on an annual or occasional basis became common practice in other New England settlements as well. During the American Revolution, the Continental Congress designated one or more days of Thanksgiving a year, and in 1789, George Washington issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation by the national government of the United States. In it, he called upon the Americans to express their gratitude for the happy conclusion to the country's War of Independence and the successful ratification of the U.S. Constitution. His successor, John Adams and James Madison, also designated days of thanks during their presidencies. In 1817, New York became the first of several states to officially adopt an annual Thanksgiving holiday. In each celebrated it on a different day. However, the American South remained largely unfamiliar with the tradition. In 1827, the noted magazine editor and prolific writer Sarah Joseph Hill, author among countless other things of the nursery rhyme Mary Had a Little Lamb, launched a campaign to establish Thanksgiving as a national holiday. For 36 years, she published numerous editorials and sent scores of letters to governors, senators, presidents, and other politicians, earning her the nickname the Mother of Thanksgiving. Abraham Lincoln finally heeded her request in 1863 at the height of the Civil War in a proclamation entreating all Americans to ask God to in quotes, commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in lamentable civil strife, and to heal the wounds of the nation. He scheduled Thanksgiving for the final Thursday in November, and it was celebrated on the day every year until 1939, when Franklin D. Roosevelt moved the holiday up a week in an attempt to spur retail sales during the Great Depression, which, well, we'll leave that for another show. Roosevelt planned no known derivacy as Thanksgiving was met with passionate opposition, and in 1941, the president reluctantly signed a bill making Thanksgiving the fourth Thursday in November. Now, as far as Thanksgiving traditions and rituals, this is what history.com has to say about it. And of course, the link will be in the description. In many American households, the Thanksgiving celebration has lost much of its original religious significance. Instead, It now centers on cooking and sharing a bountiful meal with family and friends. Turkey, a Thanksgiving staple, so obsequious. Uh, yeah, I knew I messed up that word. That word right there. Sometimes I have trouble with some words. It has become all but synonymous with the holiday. May or may not have been an offer when the Pilgrims hosted the inaugural feast in 1621. So it doesn't mean that they didn't have turkeys back then, but or a turkey back then, because they did mention fowl. It could have been pheasants and duck or something like that. Now, today, however, nearly 90% of Americans eat the bird, whether roasted, baked, or deep fried, on Thanksgiving, according to the National Turkey Federation. Now, some people don't care for turkey. I like turkey, but I'm having ham this year because it was what I could afford. But let me know what you're serving up for Thanksgiving, or what you served up for Thanksgiving, because this is after Thanksgiving, I should say. Let me know what you served up for Thanksgiving in the comments down below. Other traditional food include stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and of course, what I said my favorite was pumpkin pie. Volunteering is a common Thanksgiving Day activity, and communities often hold food drives and host free dinners for the less fortunate. And of course, there's pictures of the Macy's Day Parade and Thanksgiving Day Parade, which I think is either not happening this year or it's being live streamed. Parades have also become an inaugural part of the holiday in cities and towns across the United States. Presented by Macy's department store since 1924, New York City's Thanksgiving Day Parade is the largest and most famous. And of course, it's televised to around the world, basically, attracting some 2 to 3 million spectators along its 2.5-mile route and drawing an enormous television audience. It typically features marching bands, performers, elaborate floats conveying various celebrities, and giant balloons shaped like cartoon characters. And of course, there's always Santa at the end of the parade. Beginning in the mid-20th century and perhaps even earlier, the President of the United States had pardoned 1 or 2 Thanksgiving turkeys each year, sparing the bird from slaughter and sending them to a farm for retirement. A number of U.S. governors also performed the annual turkey pardoning ritual. Now, Thanksgiving controversies. For some scholars, the jury is still out on whether the feast at Plymouth really constituted the first Thanksgiving in the United States. Indeed, historians have recorded other ceremonies of thanks among European settlers in North America that predate the Pilgrim celebration. In 1565, for instance, the Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez de Avila invited members of the local Tumaca tribe to dinner in St. Augustine, Florida, after holding a mass to thank God for his crew's safe arrival. On December 4th, 1619, when 38 British settlers reached a site known as Berkeley 100 on the banks of Virginia's James River, and they read a proclamation designating the date as a day of thanksgiving to Almighty God. Now, some Native Americans and many others take issue with how Thanksgiving story is presented to the American public, and especially to school children. In their views, the traditional narrative paints a deceptively sunny portrait of relations between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people, masking the long, bloody history of conflict between Native Americans and European settlers that resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands. Since 1970, protesters have gathered in on the day designated as Thanksgiving at the top of Coles Hill, which overlooks Plymouth Rock, to commemorate a national day of mourning. Similar events are held in other parts of the country. So some people celebrate it as a mourning because the Europeans brought not only with them guns, but they also brought with them diseases. They killed off a lot of Native Americans to get the land that we have nowadays. But I mean, it's just getting lost more and more every year. Now, Thanksgiving ancient origins. Although the American concept of Thanksgiving developed in the colonies of New England, its roots can be traced back to an other side of the Atlantic. Both separatists who came over on the Mayfield and the Puritans who arrived soon after brought with them a tradition of provincial holidays, days of fasting during difficult or pivotal moments, and days of feasting and celebration to thank God in times of plenty. As an annual celebration of the harvest and its bounty, moreover, Thanksgiving falls under a category of festivals that spans cultures, continents, and millennia. In ancient times, the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans feasted and paid tribute to their gods after the fall harvest. Thanksgiving also bears a resemblance to the ancient Jewish Hebrew festival of Sukkot. Finally, historians have noted that Native Americans had a rich tradition of commemorating the fall harvest with feasting and merrymaking long before Europeans set foot on the shores. And of course, you can find all the citations here for this. And again, this is from history.com. A link will be in the description for this. So, again, this is all pre-recorded, no chat. So let me know what your traditions are for Thanksgiving, what your favorite dish is for Thanksgiving, what your favorite dessert was for Thanksgiving, because everything is after Thanksgiving now. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also, if you like this channel, my content and everything like that, make sure that you subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, be sure to share this content with all your friends. And, of course, December 5th, I will be back live with brand new shows. Check out talkingthenight.com, and you can find out what I got upcoming for shows. Also, down in the description, there's links for the Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube. Well, of course, you're here on YouTube, so you already know that. But Discord and LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn, it's under my name, not the show's name, because it's more a professional site. But All the links are in the description down below. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope you all had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Until our live stream again December 5th. And let me take this off of here real quick. Till I live stream again December 5th. Oh, heck, I'll let you all know what I got coming up the 5th. Since the 5th is a couple days before the anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, we're going to be talking about Pearl Harbor and the hauntings that go on there. So, until then, I shall... excuse me. Until then, like I said, check out the website and you can find everything there. Until then, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking Late at night, darkness has fallen. Turn on the radio, and you hear him talking. Listening to what he has to say, all about paranormal and all of the things. When he sounds off, you can